Good day, everyone. I am Arielle Marie de Guzman, and I am assigned to discuss the second filter of the propaganda model by Noah Chomsky and Edward Herman, which they refer to as the advertising license to do business. So, yeah, let us now proceed to the first point. We have here advertising as the primary revenue source. So we all know that many media outlets rely heavily on advertising revenue to sustain their overall operations or their production in their TV programs. So this, what we see, dependency creates a financial incentive to cater to the advertiser's interest and expectations rather than purely focusing on the journalistic integrity or the public's informational needs. So let us further discuss this or further expound this using a specific sentences from the reading material. We have here, wait, there you go. From page 266, paragraph 5 of the reading material, the one highlighted in yellow, it says there that with the growth of advertising, papers that attracted ads could afford a copy price well below a production cost. This put papers lacking in advertising at a serious disadvantage. Their prices would tend to be higher. So back in the days, most newspapers have to attract advertising companies in order to cover the cost of production. So without it, they would have to increase the prices of their newspaper since in this case, advertising companies already cover the prices or the cost of production so that the newspaper companies would have to release lesser amount for allotted for the production, which results to a cheaper price of the of the newspapers being released in the market, wherein more people would be attracted and would purchase their newspaper. So again, we can see that the profit is being prioritized in this case. So yeah, let us now proceed to the second point, which Chomsky and Herman were able to discuss as the audience targeting. So advertisers are interested in reaching particular demographics that are most likely to purchase their products or services. So advertisers are very strict with their audiences wherein they would nitpick specific demographics wherein they would see that these type of audiences would have a greater purchasing power than the others. So again, let us get an excerpt from the reading material. From page 268, paragraph 1 of the reading material highlighted in yellow, it says there that in short, the mass media are interested in attracting audiences with buying power, not audiences per se. It is the affluent audiences that sparks advertisers' interest today, as in the 19th century. So it illustrates how audience targeting driven by the advertisers' interests fundamentally shapes the media landscapes. Their focus on appealing to the selected demographic leads to somehow a selective and sometimes superficial coverage of topics as media outlets prioritize profit over a more comprehensive, diverse representation of news, since they are now focused on what these affluent audiences or this rich audiences would want to see. So because of this, advertisers now are being viewed as the patrons. So viewing advertisers as the patrons of television programming networks, it highlights the significant role that revenue plays in shaping the content being created, being produced, and being broadcasted to the world. Since television networks are now primarily funded through advertising revenue. So, this somehow economic structure or the funding model essentially positions advertisers as the patrons. They consider them as the patrons who sponsor the programming or who sponsors the production of their TV programs, their news coverages. In this case, without their financial support, without the funding that they get from the advertisers, many networks would now struggle to remain viable. So they would somehow cut costs in their production, which makes it hard for them to operate daily. Again, let us now get a specific excerpt from the reading material. We have here from page 268, paragraph 2, highlighted again in yellow. The power of advertisers over television programming stems from the simple fact that they buy and pay for the programs. They are the patrons who provide the media subsidy. So again, as patrons, advertisers now would wield substantial influence over what gets produced and what is not being produced. Networks now must ensure that their overall model of programming aligns now with the interest of the advertisers to secure necessary funding for their program or for their network, leading to a content strategy that prioritizes viewer engagement, so high data engagement from the audiences over journalistic integrity. Slide. So as a consequence, network programming now may avoid themes or subjects that do not conform to the interest of the advertisers, such as political critique or controversial social issues. So the discussions of these topics would now be avoided, since these topics could risk alienating some segments of the audience, since that does not want to be heard by the rich audiences. So media outlets now may engage in what they call the self-censorship, avoiding topics that could offend advertisers or that could put advertisers in the bad light, or it could lead them to a backlash. So this now creates an environment where sensationalism and corporate interests and issues deemed more advertiser friendly dominate the overall coverage of that specific network. Let us again have a specific lines from the reading material. From page 269, paragraph 50, highlighted in yellow, advertisers will want more generally to avoid programs with serious complexities and disturbing controversies that interfere with the buying mood. They seek programs that will lightly entertain and thus fit in with the spirit of the primary purpose of program purchases, the dissemination of a selling message. Again, with advertisers as the patrons, television networks now contribute to a culture that emphasizes consumerism. Programming often reinforces values and behaviors consistent with consumer identities, effectively shaping societal norms and expectations. Since now these networks are now being hold or being operated by these advertising revenues, they now have to conform to what they want. And what they want is to sell and be profitable over their TV programs. So they would now promote a sense of consumerism in that case. With advertisers as patrons, media outlets now may prioritize again profitability over public service, leading to an erosion of their role as the watchdogs of democracy. So investigative journalism, which often challenges powerful entities, including advertisers, again may now be downplayed or may not be produced and neglected by the TV companies. So this relationship influences not only what kind of content, but also how it is presented, how it is broadcasted, often prioritizing commercial interests over the public good. By understanding this dynamic, audiences can critically assess the motivations behind the media that they consume and recognize the limitations that arise when media becomes heavily reliant on advertising funding. So we can now see how advertising plays a role in the series that we see, in the series that we watch, and the movies that we go to. We can now see how advertising is being placed in those parts. In summary, the reliance on advertising significantly affects the types of news that are being produced and disseminated. It tends to create a media environment that prioritizes again profit over public interest, leading to potential biases in what stories are being told and how they are presented. This dynamic contributes to a homogenized media landscape that may not adequately represent the diversity of opinions and information necessary for the society. So, understanding this reliance allows individuals to critically assess the media they consume and seek out alternative sources that prioritize journalistic integrity and public service. So that somehow sums up my presentation on the second filter of the propaganda model, the advertising license to do business by Noah Chomsky and Edward Herman. So let us now proceed to the next filter. Thank you.